Welcome back to the Mining Mum podcast. I'm Tegan, your host. And today I've got a really exciting guest, Krystal. She is a fellow mining mum up in Port Hedland. She is a production superintendent at Roy Hill. And she's also been nominated for Women in Resources Awards for 2025 and is a finalist. So super exciting and so excited to hear about her journey. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you originally got into mining. What inspired you?
So I was born and raised in Hedland. So a little Hedland kid, got to see Dad and both my grandfathers working in Hedland. So first grandfather worked at Goldsworthy, which is now Fennican Island.
Yeah, amazing.
He was a dozer op. And my other grandfather, he worked at Nelson Point and he was the rigging foreman there for a lot of years. So Dad started working alongside his dad, so his grandfather, who was a rigging foreman out there. And I was lucky enough that mining was the norm. I've never lived in Perth or any metro areas, so Port Hedland was what I considered normal. In the days before site access, I could ride my bike through the Nelson Point gate.
Oh my gosh.
And go and see Dad and, after school and whatever else, wait for him to finish to be able to go back home. It was one of those things like seeing the stackers and reclaimers and ship loaders and all that sort of stuff. It was always something that I always thought I wanted to be a part of. Dad was a real big, I always looked up to Dad and my grandfathers, and I didn't know the difference between, male and female at that time. And it wasn't normal for girls to be in the industry. It's just what I wanted to do.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And you didn't go straight into mining from school. What did you do when you left school?
No, I was a bit naughty. I probably wasn't as committed to school as what I should have been. I think I was probably smart enough to be. I just didn't have the commitment at that time. Liked to have a good time. And I actually really wanted to get into a trade, and Mum and Dad particularly Dad in the industry, sort of knew what it was like back then, because we're talking, probably 20 years ago, showing my age, and it was sort of encouraging me to do something different, not to follow into mining, branch out, look at something different. And I got an opportunity to do a school-based traineeship, which was just ripper for me, because I thought, oh, great, I can go to school 3 days a week and work 2 days a week, get paid for it, and still be able to graduate. I did a school-based traineeship to be a legal secretary to start off with.
Wow,
so
amazing.
Yeah, got a nice little Cert 3 at the end of it and all that sort of stuff. And then I kept doing that out of school for about a year before I committed to making the switch.
Amazing. And I think one thing that I love about Port Hedland for, teenagers and high school kids is that there is those school-based traineeships. When we were growing up, there was nothing like that you could actually get paid to go to work and learn real-life skills, especially in an industry that you want to go into.
Yeah, 100%. It's so nice to see it become the norm now. I think when I first started and having that school-based traineeship, it wasn't heard of. My brother's 8 years older than me, and it wasn't something that he had the opportunity for. So can't recommend it highly enough. Any kids that happen to be listening, or mum and dads, just encourage, if they're not going to go down a university path, those, trade, tech level roles, whatever else, couldn't recommend it enough for school-based traineeships.
Yeah,
awesome
so
opportunity.
good.
Yeah.
And then you made the switch into mining. What was your first career?
So when I knew that I didn't want to stay in law at that stage, and I still wanted to go down the path of following Dad. And for me, in my mind, I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, because I'd done the school-based traineeship in admin. I tried to apply for a couple of apprenticeships. People weren't looking at me, wasn't even getting a foot in the door. Thought I'm earning money, I'll just go out and get some tickets. So, paid for, dogging rigging ticket. I started looking, I can't remember the name of the labour hire company, but I signed up for a labour hire company and just said, look, I just want a foot in the door. And I got a foot in the door with Boom Logistics, cranes.
Yeah.
But it was as admin, because that was what was going at the time, and that's where I started. And I made it really clear I wanted to get in the operations and on the tools and all that sort of stuff. And I slowly worked my way around it, I suppose. I ended up getting promoted to a I'm just trying to remember the name of the role. It was like a kind of like a scheduling role or a fleet controller role, because logistically I like to get things done and all the rest of it. And the lads, a lot of the crane drivers and stuff knew that I'd paid for my tickets and stuff. So, they were teaching me things in the yard because they knew this is what I wanted to do. So they were, teaching me different, basic rigging techniques and whatever else, to the point where I was actually setting up all the, like trailers for shuts and all the rest of it and all that sort of gear. And I was getting to, drive the front around the yard and help out.
So good.
It's kind of where it kicked off.
Yeah.
I was helping organise, contracts for really large shuts for some of the, bigger plays in the Midwest, Pilbara areas, all the rest of it for craneage and all that sort of stuff. And then I seen an opportunity come up with a processing plant. At this stage, I'm still like in my early, not even, I've only just turned 20, and this is all in the space of a really short time. I seen this processing role come up, and I was like, surely, like, this is my time. Like, I've got to have a crack at this. I really want to go. And I managed to get the opportunity. So to the leader, because I'm still in contact with him now, he'll know who he is.
That's awesome.
Can't thank him enough, because he's essentially the one that took a chance on me, and this is where I am now.
Yeah, but it's not really a chance, because you had done the work. And I think that's really underrated, is that a lot of people just think that they're going to walk into a mining job, 6 figures, one of those big mining companies. Like I always say, go labour hire or go to the contracting companies, because you mentioned like you learned rigging, you learned how to drive a crane, you learned logistics, contracts, all of those things. Even before you stepped on a mine site, you had all of that knowledge, and that's so underrated, I think, like the skills you will learn before you even get on site.
Can't recommend it enough. And like since I've sort of been on this journey and I've gained a little bit of confidence. I've been mentoring quite a lot of girls in the industry as well. A couple of them, my nieces, very, very proud.
Awesome.
And it was my first thing with them. Probably the youngest niece, she wasn't even 18 yet, and she was like, I want to do this. How do I go about it? Jump into a labour hire, jump in as a contractor, just dip your feet in. Because you never know where you're going to end up. You never know what you're going to like to do. Yeah. And I think it's really important too to have that understanding. I was actually talking about it with another lady at the event this morning that I was at, that having an appreciation for people starting off, people working in contractor roles, all the rest of it, and being able to integrate them into the larger, operations and larger companies and work as one, that in itself is really, really important too.
Yeah, so good. And then from the processing role, how did you kind of start getting into your leadership journey? What inspired you and what made you take the next step?
If I'm being honest, I just wanted to one-up Dad. Like I said, he's been a huge inspiration to me. And right from the get-go, when I sort of got my first gig in that processing role, I said to my manager at the time, when they have those initial discussions, whatever else, there's this little 20-year-old girl that's just rolled in and said,
full of excitement.
Yeah, I want that supervisor's job. Like I want to be the best operator, and I want to be the next supervisor. I want to be the best at what I do. And that was all I was worried about at that point in time. I just threw myself into understanding this was all complex processing. So it was like electrostatics, magnetics, wet separation, like all the jazz, and I just thrived on the variety.
Oh, so good.
But because I put so much effort into what I was doing extra shifts, I was just all the, older generation lads that, took the time to, work and invest in me as this young girl who was, trying to outdo them. Like it just made all the difference.
Yeah.
So I suppose having that initiative, my manager seen something in me that probably I didn't even realise at the time that I had, and said to me, I want to give you a crack at a project. So there was this project over in a place called Balranald. It's actually a mine now. It was successful.
Cool.
And it was a world first. No one had ever tried. It was a new style of mining. I won't go into too much detail because I'm not sure how much I can give. But gave me the opportunity to go over there and have a crack as a supervisor. So, and I'd only worked in the industry for like a year at this stage as an actual operator. Obviously, time, with cranes, whatever else. But yeah, it was kind of then that I had the opportunity to understand what leading teams meant. I had trades underneath me and all the rest of it. And I still remember the comment. I was quietly, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah,
I was quietly shitting myself.
Yeah.
first time, leading teams and trying to get, everything right. And it was, in a construction phase as well, into like commissioning and then, trialing this new form of mining. And I remember being in the room with all these, managers, like real experienced people. I was the only female on this site. There was hundreds of blokes on this site, only female, in the middle of nowhere. And once I'd said my bit, I'd laid out my plan for the day, I knew what I was doing, whatever else. I remember the mine manager came over to me afterwards and he goes, "You sound like a 40-year-old construction worker. Like, you absolutely nailed that." And that was the biggest feather in my cap ever.
I love it. I love it so much because, that was going to be my next question. Being the only female on that site and super young and having all of those traded men that had worked in the industry for 40 years, what do you think helped you to be successful and resonate to lead them?
Just determination, honestly. It's a bit like fake it till you make it. And I think typically women, I know men probably have it as well, but typically women have that imposter syndrome, right? Like we all do it. Yeah. Just push it. You're never going to get rid of it. I don't think it ever goes away, but finding ways to be able to push past it and lean into what you know and lean into these transferable skills, right? Like a lot of us have like great organisational skills, have skills, to be able to adapt and talk and, inspire people to do something. Lean on those because everything else around it that you're not so great at then kind of falls into place and you learn along the way. So, probably the biggest thing that helped me out,
determination.
For sure. Yeah.
I also hear that key theme of respect, that you're building that respect with those people that are more skilled or more knowledgeable. Sounds like that was a key part of your journey as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm still in contact with a lot of the lads that I used to work with over the years. Not without its challenges. Certainly had some pretty hairy instances, especially when you're the only woman on site in some pretty remote locations. A lot of these people that you work with, some of them are international, they're not from Australia, whatever else. So definitely had some, probably some interesting points of my career that you kind of question whether is it really worth it in the early days. But that's just the important part, right? Like if I think about where I was 15 years ago when I first started off and what the industry was like then to where it is now. It's people like yourselves, people like me, it's people like all the ladies that I'm with, for the CME awards. That all makes the big difference and paves the way for the next generation to come through without those roadblocks.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And then, your project was successful. You did your first gig. Then you went on to leading bigger teams and go into the role that you're in now. How has that been, scaling to the next step and, now running a full port, which is the largest port in Australia, export port in the world actually, isn't it?
Yeah. Largest bulk loading port in the world, Port Hedland as a whole. Yeah, for sure. Terrifying is probably one way to put it. I know. So before I moved into the superintendent role, I'd been supervisor for a few years, whatever else, and operations is absolutely my passion. Processing, operations, all that sort of stuff. And I think it was one of those things. I didn't think I was ready. So again, like that imposter syndrome, still felt like I, needed to do more. And it was actually Dad. He's worked for Roy Hill for many, many, many years now from the get-go. And he's seen the role for production superintendent get advertised. I was working for another company and he said, "You should apply for it, Krystal." And he was actually a supervisor there at the time.
Yeah.
"You should apply for it. You ready?" And I kept saying, "Nah, look, I don't know half of what you know. I'm not sure whether I'm capable of doing that." But he kept pushing me and I did it anyway. And the old quote, I just did it for shits and gigs, just to go through the experience. If I got an interview, great. To land it blew me away. So I kind of went from, I'm probably a few years off that to I've landed it. I've actually got to perform now.
Now I need to, yeah, I love it.
But it's worked, right? And again, you lean into the skills that you think you don't have, but you actually do. And being able to, bring that along the way. I think the biggest thing is that we don't recognise enough is people skills, right? Leveraging you're never on your own. You never succeed on your own. Leveraging off the people around you, creating teams of people who are inspired to work together. That's where the cream is, and that's how you all succeed together. If you do it alone, then it's very challenging, and it makes for a hard road.
Yeah, definitely. And what does a day in the life look like for you?
It's different every day. It depends. I could say from the last 3 years, there's been no month, no day that's ever been the same. But generally speaking, days always started off with running through how we performed for the last 24 against the week, against your monthly, month-term plans, all that sort of stuff. So we'll review that, set the guys up for success around what we need to work on for the day, whatever our risks and all that sort of gear. Meetings, lots and lots of meetings. One thing I wasn't prepared for, and learning how to work in meetings is a skill in itself. But really looking forward, I suppose, from a superintendent level, you're looking for the month, to quarter on how do we de-risk, what we've got. Is there opportunities for us to be able to, uplift? We're working on projects and different pieces, and obviously when things go wrong, you're stuck doing a lot of investigations and that sort of stuff, trying to find opportunities to make sure that, we don't have those same, issues come up again.
And you're a 24/7 operation. Your teams are working days and nights all the time, weekends. Yep. You're also a mum. How do you manage and balance everything?
Not always very well, and I think that's actually really important to call out. Like those who you see on face value that you think, God, they've just really got their shit together. We don't. Because people have said that to me, you just really look like you've just got it all together. We all don't.
Yeah.
So, you got to have good people around you to support you, right? Hubby took a step back from his own career, forced from COVID and a few other bits and pieces, if I'm being honest, but has stuck with it. And if it wasn't for him, wasn't for mum and dad helping us out, for him to still be able to work to a certain function, all the rest of it, wouldn't be possible if I'm being, particularly in a regional town. Yeah. You would remember that childcare is pretty challenging in regional towns, and having a workplace that actually supports you as well, so that when the kids are sick, hubby's sick, there's no other options. Having a manager and a business that says, you know what, if you need a couple of days to be able to work from home, whatever else, that sort of support is invaluable. Yeah. That's actually really, really important. And that's actually probably a nice thing that's come out of COVID, that there's a lot more ability to be able to do that, and it's not so much frowned upon, because once upon a time it was kind of like, you're taking the piss, you're working from home. Yeah. It's not. It's actually really challenging to do it well.
Yeah. Exactly. And as we mentioned today, it's like sometimes you can be more productive at home than all the travel and, balancing everything, having to run to school, having to run to drop off, at least, sometimes working from home is actually more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And in operational roles, it's not ideal. Because it is 24/7. You need to be out of there to support whatever else. But for the exception, the rare occasions when it comes to family, that makes all the difference to me, definitely. Being able to duck off, from work for an hour for a school carnival or something, it makes it all worthwhile, and it gives me balance, I suppose.
Yeah, that's so good. And the recent nomination for Women in Resources, how did that all come about?
I have an amazing team that apparently thinks I'm great,
which that's so lovely.
Which is very humbling. Yeah, look, I was nominated by Roy Hill. I think there was a few people involved with nominating me. I don't know all those people. They haven't forgave their names. But just in itself, just to be put forward by a business that you work for, and that you put so much, passion and effort into, is I can't even explain it. It's an amazing feeling. Yeah. I think we all go through, there's so many other people that are doing more than me. So you're not sure whether, there was someone else more deserving. I'm sure there is. But I just absolutely blown away by the experience, and anyone who's lucky enough to be involved. And, I've just come from seeing the ladies that are all finalists this year. They are all weapons.
Oh, that's so awesome.
They are just amazing. Just lucky enough, I suppose, that the business thought I was good enough to be put forward, and lucky enough that I made it as a finalist.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's when I first saw it, I was like, that is so amazing, because obviously we work together as supervisors at one of the companies, and just to see people from the operations being nominated on that high, like those other people that you want to be seeing nominated is like people that have come from the ground up, and you have achieved so much. So it was amazing to see that finalist come through.
Thanks.
So good. Hi, me again. I'm Tegan, the host of the Mining Mum podcast and also the founder and director of Talent Mining and Minerals. We specialize in recruitment, labor hire, and also talent management in the mining, resources, and construction industries. So if you're looking for new talent, or you are talent and you're looking for your next opportunity, reach out to us on hello@talentminingandminerals.com. We would love to work with you. Before we wrap up today, what is your one piece of advice for anyone considering mining?
It's a tough one. I think if it was generic, it would be probably what we spoke to before. Don't wait for the traineeship. Don't wait for the apprenticeship. You know, they are so competitive now. Like, they weren't around very much when, we first started out. Just apply for everything, take any opportunity, and if it means having to, pay for a couple of tickets yourself, I always recommend people to get forklifts, that sort of stuff. Like, 'cause every mining company needs those sorts of skills. Just jump on with a labour hire company. Support the labour hire companies. They're really, really important to our industry. And diversify your skills, because, working for contracting companies is going to give you the ability to be able to see lots of different forms of mining rather than just one.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
And actually, I have another question too. What would you say to your younger self who was, breaking into the industry? What advice would you give that young girl?
I probably think I took my own advice, and it was to just follow what you love, follow the passion. Because like I said, I steered away from it in the beginning because I was like, oh yeah, maybe try something different, whatever else, and didn't force myself to just keep pushing right at the get-go. It hasn't changed the result of where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But if you love working with your hands, or if you love, the STEM pathway, you love science, engineering, all that sort of stuff, don't shy away from it, and don't think that, someone else is better off in it. Believe that you're the right person for that gig and just follow it. Don't let anything stand in your way.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Krystal, and thank you for everybody listening. If you want to know more about the Women in Resources Awards, I will link everything in the show notes. So thank you so much.